Welcome to the Luna Holistic Podcast. I'm your host, Geneva Robbins, and every month on this podcast, we'll talk about Reiki, as well as answering your questions on all things spiritual. We are gratefully located in Calgary in Treaty 7 territory. Thank you all and welcome to the show. Hi, my name is Geneva Robbins, and this is the Luna Holistic Podcast. Today, I've got Kim Starr with me. Say hi, Kim.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Good to see you. Today, we're going to talk about how do you manage the change of seasons, something Kim and I are both in the middle of right now, because we're going from a very hot, mostly smoky summer that was very busy to now a fall of unknown weather and unknown coldness and darkness. So at school and all of that stuff. Before we jump in, Kim, how do you like the fall in general?
I actually love the fall. I think it's really beautiful. And for me, it's a time to just sink in and get cozy. And I love that. But now that I have young children, it has changed a little bit. There's a lot more pressure and schedules. And so, yeah, I'm just kind of diving into this new realm of busyness in the fall.
Yeah. I both love and not quite dread, but I love the summer. And so I notice myself like clinging to the last little morsel of summertime and resisting going into fall mode. But I like fall when I'm in it. And this topic has sort of come up as by special request. A couple of people have said, how do you manage these change in routines and the shift of energy? Because it's quite a substantial shift in energy to go from summer to fall. So that's what we'll be talking about today. We'll start off with our collective breath of gratitude. So just a little mini meditation, and you can close your eyes unless you're driving. Keep your eyes open, but you can just gently close your eyes and just take a big sigh of relief. No matter what cycle of the season you are in when you're listening to this, just notice the energy of the earth below your feet. And just take a big sigh, letting anything heavy go into the earth, just dropping anything you're carrying. Noticing that gravity has always got you, and you can let go to that support anytime with just one mindful breath. And just sending a deep, reverent, and profound sense of gratitude into the earth for all she does for us every single day. Noticing the plants and animals, the trees, water, the land. Noticing the other people who might be in a moment of gratitude at this moment with all of us. Sending out that beam of gratitude everywhere and allowing that gratitude to flow back. Noticing how it just keeps on reverberating through the universe. Allowing yourself to receive all of the goodness and gratitude that the universe would like to show to you. Letting it all roll in. And when you're ready, you can Open your eyes. Yay. Thank you, Kim. How'd that go for you?
Yeah, that was so amazing. I feel relaxed and just rejuvenated and grounded. Just, it's amazing to me how just a few minutes of Reiki can completely settle all of the energy. And yeah, I feel wonderful.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah. I love that feeling of when you send gratitude out, it reflects back. It's the substance of the universe, it's the energy that underlies all matter, is one of connection, love, and gratitude. And that when we're in harmony with that, we're in harmony with the everything, everywhere, all at once. So, and then we can really connect, and it shifts things for sure. So I love that. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we were talking about this fall shift, which is like going from, I think of it as like a change in routine as well, because the summer, particularly here, tends to be pretty loosey goosey. Many people are traveling in the summer, or just your day to day routines shift, I find. It's interesting how the summer tends to be a very busy time of year, but it doesn't feel as busy because most of the time it's things that we get to choose. And then sometimes the fall is we're busy, but it's things that have been chosen for us, like school and work, and sort of back to this sort of routine. Somebody else was mentioning just even like the shift in traffic, that it takes longer to get to, your normal destinations. And it's like everybody comes back into the city and we're just kind of swamped and having to deal with like every part of our day shifting just slightly or massively, depending on what's going on. Sometimes that's a really welcome change. Sometimes it's nice or it's satisfying to have a schedule again. Sometimes, particularly, we're both moms. So sometimes it's nice to like go back into a routine and go back into a schedule, especially with kids, because they tend to thrive better with, with normal bedtimes. But yeah, there's a lot of shifts and changes, and it can be, on one hand, really welcome. On the other, it can be all kinds of anxiety. But what are your thoughts on that, Kim?
Yeah, so it's interesting when you were talking about the gratitude and how it shifts everything. And that's one thing that I've noticed over the years about appreciating this transition stage and appreciating like the change in temperature and the change in routine is just that gratitude piece and the presence piece, and being like present in each moment. So like noticing the beautiful changes of fall, noticing the change in the air and that kind of like crisp fall weather, and just being more present in it instead of being so much like in my head and in my mind. That like gratitude and presence really helps me to just let go of like the unnecessary pressure of the routines. And it's kind of been like, since I've started Reiki, it's been about managing my energy rather than managing my time. So it's even just what I'm putting into my thoughts, like the stress and the hustle and bustle. And like you said, just even the change in traffic or putting extra layers on, and the time that that takes. It's such a small thing, but it can become such a stressful situation when we have this structure. Whereas like for me, summer is a bit more easygoing and laid back in terms of for us, we don't really have to be anywhere. We can just be a little bit more carefree and relaxed. So I think it's about maintaining that gratitude and being present and just managing energy. And one of the ways that I do that is through my Reiki practice. So
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought up managing energy, because I think that is a really big piece of it, is that any time of the year, we can get overloaded with like the amount of, there's more work than time, right? Or there's just like all of a sudden we go from not really having anything on our to-do list to like, oh, I suppose all of the children are going to need new shoes and me too. And then I have to wrap my head around like new projects at work or whatever it is, like we go through those shifts. And that's one thing that, managing the energy is really important for me, for sure, is noticing where I'm at and doing the things that are like maintaining a self-care routine in the midst of a shifting routine. And it's a bit of like all of the balls are in the air, and there's a bit of like this dance or juggling act that happens where we're kind of like managing the needs of others with our own needs, right? And yeah, I love Reiki for that because it can give you a massive dose of energy in only a few minutes, So and it only takes, similar to the little, gratitude practice that we started with today, is like it only takes a couple of minutes, but you notice a shift in your energy, in your outlook, and things can seem a little bit brighter or lighter, and then also that just letting go of unnecessary tension and unnecessary thoughts, and noticing how that slows us down and makes it, if you have a lot to do, but then you're like shaming yourself about not wanting to do it or procrastinating, then you have a lot to do plus shame. And it actually ends up grinding you right down. And so I advocate not having that, don't, because it's heavy and slow. So the other thing that I love about all of this time of season is what's happening with the land and the trees, is that even though we live in cities and we're not as connected to nature as we normally would have been, I feel like we're really still affected by what's happening in the natural world, and that we can use those themes in our lives. And, what's happening in nature is also happening inside us. And it might happen that the change in the weather also coincides with a change inside, or in our internal environment is changing too, or that the change that's happening externally sort of invites this reflection and going deeper. There's a couple of things that I think are fascinating that happen in nature that also happen in us. So one is the shift in the trees. So when it's summertime, the trees are busy making sugars in their leaves, and there's a lot of upward energy. They might be fruiting, and, apples are growing and all of that. So there's a lot of upward energy and an upward flow, and it's very energizing. And then at some point, it starts to get a little bit cool at night, and it's a signal for the trees to start packing away all of their nutrients. And even evergreen trees, there's a downward flow, and they store all the sugars in their roots as starches so that they can make it through the winter. And some trees will lose their leaves, and we get this like beautiful show. But what that does for us is that there's a shift of energy from mainly upward, which is energizing, to grounding and rooting, and bringing the energy. If you think of like the energy going through our chakras, from our crown at the top of our head, down through our body to our root at the base of your spine, and down through your feet. And so often what happens in the fall is that we start thinking about planning and preparation and routines. We start thinking about the details of life and putting structure and order to things. And it kind of brings us back to our homes. The other things that we're drawn inside, so we're actually going inside to that interior landscape, the weather's colder, so we're spending more time indoors, you know? And so we get that opportunity in the fall to not only think about our routine and our self-care schedule and where are those little drops of energy going to come from that are going to like keep you going. This is a great time to think about what kinds of self-care give you the biggest bang for your buck. It's different for everybody. Some people it's exercise, some people it's meal prep, other people it's getting to bed on time. And then there's also meditation and Reiki in there too. So that's one of the things that is happening. What's your take on that, Kim?
You were talking about having that extra shame piece. So for me, it's just the idea of like being kind to myself, because I find for myself in the fall, just kind of like how you were talking about nature doing the same types of things that's happening maybe for us emotionally. I find in the fall is like I'm just kind of letting go and starting to go inward. And even though there's the busier schedules and a more like structured routine, I find that it's kind of like my time to be really cozy and comfortable. And for us here in Calgary, like start preparing for the winter. And so it's really about being kind to myself and just having a little bit of extra rest if I need it. And like you said, the self-care piece is so important. I find that I like read a lot more books in the fall and in the winter. And just interesting how for me, it just like the trees are letting go of the leaves. I'm like letting go of things that I've needed to let go of from the year. And again, that's why like Reiki is so important. So I find also in the fall that I like to get sessions facilitated by other people more often, because I like to just be cared for and have that like extra support that I need. And it's just like, it's like an unwinding for me. It's quite fascinating how I kind of sink in, and it's a reflection period for me. And so just being really kind to myself, because as you know, sometimes when you sink in, a lot of emotions can come up. And sometimes you need to like balance that energy a little bit. I do like a lot more writing, I find, in the fall. And it's probably because, like you said, the summer is busy and you're out enjoying yourself and having fun. And then as soon as the shift in weather happens for me, I start to kind of go on the inside a bit more and do a lot of my self-healing work. So
Yeah, totally. Totally. The other part is what's happening in nature is this fall turnover from in lakes. Many lakes, if they're deep enough, they'll have a warm upper layer and a really cold lower layer during the summer. But then as the temperatures drop, the water at the top gets colder, cold water sinks. So what ends up happening is that it's a really important part of the ecology of lakes in this area is that when that cold water sinks, it stirs up all of the nutrients, which is all the muck, all the stuff that is like fallen on the lake and rotted at the bottom, all gets turned over in these big lakes. And it brings all of that good stuff, it's nutrients. It ends up being good for the lake in the long run, but it's mucky, right? Because it's all that muck and goop that's been, the weather's been fine and you haven't thought about it. And so sometimes old stuff can come up. So sometimes it's stuff that you haven't looked at since last fall. And so there can be things, emotional stuff. So we're kind of digging into the deep. But when we do that, all of that potential for change and transformation comes to the surface as well. And then when we sort of dig into what's happening in our interior life, sometimes it brings up a lot of emotion that is uncomfortable, or old memories, or just this general theme of letting go. sometimes that comes with like grief and loss. And sometimes it's just tiny, small in the grand scheme of things, losses like the end of the summer or the end of the season. We have to let go of the summer in order to enjoy the fall and the winter, and we have to let go of the fall when we, go into the winter and, each season externally, but also the seasons of our lives. My kiddo is starting high school. So there's a letting go of like, we went past his old school the other day and it was like, oh, he's not going to go there, like, so there's these little losses, but then there's new stuff that's also exciting. So we're kind of at this intersection between the old stuff that needs to be processed and released going away. And then there's this new stuff that some of it is exciting, but it's also unknown. And going into the unknown can be a really shaky, tender time. And again, coming back to a grounding practice or something that helps you with your self-healing and your self-care. Our go-to is, Reiki self-healing. Kim's and I are both teaching level 1 classes in this fall and seasonally as well. And that's a really great opportunity to learn how to do these self-healing practices and really dig into sort of what's happening chakra by chakra. I really love how much growth can happen for people in level 1 classes, but we've also got a self-healing meditation. So whether you know Reiki or not, you can just go through these guided meditations, and we've got a grounding meditation. But one of my favorites for facing the unknown is the infinite universe meditation, which I wrote because I was doing a whole bunch of new stuff and I didn't feel super comfortable, but I knew I needed to do it. So I wrote this meditation to basically help me lean into the giant question mark that is the future. And so sometimes that process of relaxing into knowing what's going to happen in that kind of uncertainty. So what's your favorite way of riding through uncertainty, Kim?
For me, just about practicing acceptance and also noticing. I think a big thing for me has been just noticing the energy that it takes to resist.
Oh yeah, good one.
Yeah, it's just like surrendering to that resistance, or surrendering to accepting that this is, a change, and that change is inevitable and it's going to come. Like you said, we go through many, many seasons in our lifetime. And so it's kind of diving into that acceptance piece for me and just surrendering to the unknown, and also the process of accepting change. And it's difficult. I like structure. I like routine. I like to know what's happening next. But one of the things is just to try not to expend too much energy trying to control things, because that just never works.
It doesn't. Yeah, one of my favorite and very kind things that I go to often is that it's better to know math than the answer. Which is a very nerdy way of saying is like, if you don't have to know how every detail is going to work out. You don't have to try to control every little thing or sort of be vigilant all of the time, because you can trust your skills. You can trust that you have the formula within you. You've got a self-care routine. You've got skills and tools that you can lean on. So it's okay if you don't know what's going to happen in the future. Just journal about, hey, I'm really feeling uncertain about the future, or reach out for help, talk to a friend about it, talk to somebody who's maybe been through that transition, even just talking with the family friend about, oh, my kids went to that high school and they really liked it. And I was like, okay, well, maybe it won't be so bad. And it probably won't. We don't even know. That's the thing, is that sometimes the fear and the worry is like, for me, it's a way it pops up of like when I'm uncomfortable with that uncertainty. So rather than having a question mark, I'll just fill it in with whatever happened in the past, or I'll fill in that question mark with like the worst possible thing that could ever happen, which isn't actually known. I don't know that's going to happen. So sometimes just gently questioning my thoughts and then asking these gentle questions, like with Byron Katie's The Work. I'll put a link to that in the show notes, but it's this beautiful process of just questioning whether your thoughts are even true. And I find that very comforting because you get an opportunity to shift and say, well, is this a thought that's actually helping me in the long run? Or is this a thought that's just whipping me up into a frenzy and I'm not actually getting any traction anywhere? So that's part of the process I lean into. But yeah, I'm just curious too of what's your final thoughts and recommendations?
I actually remember learning about that in our Reiki classes, and you showing us this like questioning how quickly after you answer those questions that the worry dissipates. Like, because it's incredible that once you kind of sit down and have this rational conversation with yourself and answer these questions, that it's not based on fact at all. So once you realize that, it's like instantly you can relax and be like, okay. And one of the things for me about fall is I've noticed like everything starts to be like comfort food, like certain drinks that are like these cozy, comfortable blankets and warm clothing. Like everybody's kind of like hunkering down and getting comfortable. And so if you look at what you can do internally for that, it's about like, how can I provide comfort to myself in these uncertain times and like through this transition period? I think it's quite difficult for people when they're busy to, sit down and say, like, what makes me comfortable? Like, what types of like loving kindness can I show to myself or can I give to myself? And I think in doing that, it makes a huge difference on the uncertainty piece and making sure that you're providing as much comfort to yourself as you possibly can during this time of change. It's interesting because every season brings, a different type of energy, and we're also like shifting into that energy. So just kind of looking into what that shift is for you and how to take care of yourself during that shift.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like, what's the internal version of the pumpkin spice latte and the cozy plush sweater? you know,
Exactly.
that there's a something that gives you that feeling on the inside. There's an internal tool. And sometimes it is just making space for your feelings to be okay. It's okay to have whatever feelings you have about any change or transition you're going through. It's part of the cycle of life. And that sort of reminds me of, the apple tree cycle that Rita, who's also works at Luna Holistic, was talking about as part of the trilotherapy that she does, is that there's this phase of this apple tree cycle of that we have all of these periods of germination and growth and fruiting. And then there's the phase where we have to let things go, but we can nurture ourselves through each of those phases. And then also, there isn't really any ends in nature. It's all part of a cycle. So when we let things go, new things come in, and while seasons might be coming to an end, we have this sort of perpetual, we're always planting new seeds. There's always areas of new growth. There's always new beginnings. Every ending is also a beginning. and we can focus on every single part of it. And there's also this interesting little middle bit of transition where you're neither place. You have one foot in one world and one foot in another. And the in-between times can actually be very, very magical times. And so just sort of notice if maybe you're in an in-between time in your life. And that's a really beautiful time to do some manifesting. It's a really good time to do some journaling. And you get to, I think, sort of cast your vote into the sea of the universe and see what the universe gives you back. One of the things that we've been sort of working on are these sort of new session types. So one of them is this creative manifesting workshop. There's a meditation, but we're going to expand it into a longer session where we'll guide you through basically manifesting whatever you want. So you get help with the visualization of your dreams and bringing them to reality. That's going to be on the menu of our services this fall. So I've got some work ahead of me, as well as some past life healing sessions and some multi-generational healing sessions as well, where we're guiding you through these meditations to sort of open up and release some long-held trauma and get a deeper and sort of soulful, compassionate view on what might be happening. And then closing off with a little bit of Reiki. And I've been doing this work for myself for quite a bit. And now we're going to be offering that as a service going forward to sort of help people turbocharge their healing work.
I have to say, I experienced the manifesting creation session, and it was incredible. Like, I highly recommend it to anybody that's curious about how to manifest or what that looks like, or you've been working on manifestation, but it was unbelievable and life-changing. And if you are interested in it, you should definitely book in.
Yay. Thanks. I love it. It's great. Yeah, it's something that I've been really excited to bring to people, and that's what I've been working on most of the summer. So is getting those sessions ready for people. And yeah, it's pretty amazing. And it's like you get somebody to hold your hand while you turbocharge your dreams. So we do have the creative manifesting workshop meditation is on our blog as well. So if you want to go and do that one, you can do those ones. They're there as well. So thank you so much, Kim. This has been fantastic. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so happy to be here and totally looking forward to my pumpkin spice latte in the next few weeks.
Right? Yes. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you have any questions, or if we'd love to hear how this has resonated with you, if you've got any questions, please drop us a line. And until next time, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Luna Holistic Podcast. We're so grateful that you are here. If you've got a question, we'd love to hear from you. Go to lunaholistic.com/podcast and we'll answer you in an upcoming episode. Be sure to subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And also please rate, because you never know where your little 5 stars will go to shine light into somebody's heart today. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.